What's good, everybody, and welcome to a special episode of the What's Good Games podcast. Normally, your source for video game news, commentary, analysis, and funny stuff every Friday. I, of course, am still Andrea Renee, joined by Brittany Brombacher.
Still Brittany.
But we have a little bit of a different show this week. So before we introduce our special guest, we, of course, want to say thank you to this month's Patreon producers, Chewy's Godson, Alex Rigopulos, Faris Attieh, Justin Foshee, Punkdefied, and Matty Dray. Thank you so much for all of your support. To everybody at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames, where you can listen to the show ad-free or get your name shout out, which we're just about to do. But before we do that, I want to let you know today's show is brought to you by MeUndies. We'll have a message from them in just a little bit. So speaking of shout outs, Britt, I feel like we always do the shout outs for our patrons sort of towards the end of the show. And I was like, let's switch it up and just do it at the beginning of the show.
Variety is the spice of life, Andrea.
Yes, I love it. And because we are recording a special episode, our third chair, Rihanna Manuel Pena, is not here to join us, but she will be back in the next episode. So without further ado, should we read a bunch of names and hopefully not mispronounce them?
Oh, we're going to mispronounce all of them. And I will start with Matty Dray,
Robert Griffin,
Fargo Brady,
Ryan Saffel,
Nathaniel Edison,
Bill Rosas,
Tyler Adams,
Erskine James,
Casual Blasphemy,
Trick 24,
Omega 3,
Jason Luck,
Marooned at Noon,
Daniel Ho,
Eric Z,
Dracus 3442,
Chewy's Godson,
Mick at the Nanobiologist Abramson,
Access Oddities,
Tara Bruno,
Trent Barry,
Sean I,
Elizabeth Douglas,
Brian R. Johnston,
Justin Foshee,
Patrick Landry,
Punkdefied,
Rob Leonard,
Patrick Higgins,
Kenneth Stinnell,
Trent Pennington,
Faris Attieh,
Jessica Bloom,
Patrick Weller,
Matthew Godard,
Noel Navarez,
Chris Wang,
Tyler McCall,
Devin Nitz,
Adrian Arak Williams,
Shai Jackson Burgess,
Renat Burns,
Gary Peck,
Dale Sun,
Robert F. Freemring,
Carl Milne,
Marcus Ian Brown,
Pete Shoemaker,
The Wall of Bill,
Teresa Enert.
Jason Demers, you fixed your pledge. Good job, baby.
Look at that. Our family is just right next to each other.
Love it.
Alex Rigopulos,
Andrew Cotton,
David Icolucci,
El Michelle,
Gio Corsi,
Crispy Koala. Now, is this a koala on a skewer? Is it like overcooked? Why is it crispy? I mean, that's terrible, actually, now that I'm thinking about the events that have transpired over the last few years.
See, I was just thinking about the cookies, like the koala cookies. Crispy. Maybe my brain just wants sweets right now. I don't know. Molly Bittner,
Ozzy Bakia,
Nicole Humphrey,
Stephanie Fitzwilliam,
and John Drake. If you want your name read on the podcast, you can support us and our voices in video games at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames. Thank you to all of these wonderful people and the rest of our supporters over on Patreon. We say it all the time because we mean it from our hearts. We love that you guys support our show, and we could not do it without you. And thank you to everybody who has been with us since day one. There's like a lot of those names that we've read literally every single month since the beginning.
and we still don't know how to say them properly.
It's true. Fine. It's true. Every time I see Faris, I'm like, I'm so sorry about your last name.
I know.
And he just laughs it off, and God bless him for having a good sense of humor about it. Because I'm like, I'm trying over here. All right. So let's go ahead and get into our special episode. So we had the opportunity to sit down with the president of the ESRB, the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, Patricia Vance, and talk to her about who the ESRB as an organization, what they do, and where we're at in the world of rating video games. And it was a really fascinating conversation.
It really is. And I just want everyone to go into this interview with an open mind. You're going to learn a lot. This isn't just about, these are ratings on a video game. We learned a lot about the process of it, what goes into it, the other work that the ESRB does, but you don't really know about. It's likely you don't know about, I should say. So just go in and listen and get schooled today by Patricia. I did, and I feel a lot better from it.
She's wonderful. And she also gives a bunch of resources. So if you are a parent or if you're just interested in ratings overall, you can keep listening and learn about them. So enjoy. What's good, everybody? Andrea and Britt here with a very special interview. We are joined by the president of the ESRB, the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, Patricia Vance. Pat, it's so great to have you on the show.
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you.
I know we've been working quite a while with both of our schedules to make this happen, so we're glad that we're finally able to have a chat because the ESRB is one of those organizations in video games that feels so ubiquitous, is always present and around and doing things, but we don't really get to hear from you guys very often. And I love that you're out there making sure people know that you guys have a mission and you're doing great things. So for people who are listening or watching and aren't familiar with who the ESRB is, do you have like an elevator pitch that you give to people?
Yeah. Well, look, first and foremost, we were created to make sure that consumers and particularly parents have the information they need to make informed purchase decisions for their families and for their kids. So we really pride ourselves in the fact that for over 25 years now, we've been rating games, a lot of games, and an increasing number of games as the market keeps getting bigger and bigger. So we do a lot beyond ratings as well that gets not as much notice, but is also really important. When the industry set out to create a self-regulatory body, the ESRB, we also introduced a set of advertising guidelines. So the ESRB is also very involved in monitoring the advertising and marketing for the industry and making sure that companies are responsibly marketing their product, which means displaying rating information, not inappropriately targeting ads for mature rated games and the like, making sure that the ads they create aren't offensive to the public at large. And there's a lot involved in that. We have a whole department dedicated to monitoring. Many companies pre-clear their ad campaigns with us, their media buys as well as their creatives. So we are very busy on an ongoing basis to make sure that the industry is responsibly marketing product. It's an important part of our mission. And another part, which was introduced a little around 2000, was when the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act was introduced. We got into the privacy certification business. So it's an opt-in program where companies come to us. They want us to work with them to make sure that their privacy policies actually reflect their privacy practices and that their websites and mobile apps are monitored on an ongoing basis to make sure that they not only are compliant with the stated privacy policies, but that they're also compliant with the law, which is a moving target right now. There's a lot going on in privacy regulation, not just here in the United States, but also in Europe and in other territories around the world. So that's a really increasingly important part of what we do. So we've got a large dedicated staff of people who love the games industry, but also really love the mission of our organization, which is to make sure that consumers are protected, but also that companies themselves who are in the business are acting responsibly.
That's really great to know. I will admit I did not know half of that.
Yeah.
I think when folks think of the ESRB, they think of that little black and white corner little sticker with a rating on it, but they don't quite realize how many people are involved. You did say it's a large organization. Do you know off the top of your head roughly how many people work for the ESRB?
Well, in relative terms, it's not as large as the companies that we deal with, but we do have 30 some odd full-timers plus a whole host of part-timers. I would also mention, one of the things when I was hired, which was almost 20 years ago, one of the sort of Achilles heels of the industry was kids could walk into a brick and mortar store and purchase a mature rated video game without a lot of pushback, even if their parent wasn't present. And so when I joined, one of my first hires was to hire Randy Walker out of the retail business to work on a whole retailer program. And the Federal Trade Commission, believe it or not, used to monitor our industry and conduct mystery shop audits.
Like secret shoppers for ratings?
Secret shopper audits. And they started after Columbine. So
Oh.
when Columbine happened, President Clinton asked the Federal Trade Commission to report to Congress on an ongoing basis on the marketing of violent entertainment to kids. And one of the things that our industry was not doing very well at the time was enforcing its marketing guidelines, but also enforcing store policies not to sell mature rated video games to kids. So in the first audit they did, which I think was 2000, I want to say maybe 2000, it was about 15% of the time a kid would get stopped.
Mm.
And
That's not very high.
not very high. Movies were doing a bit better at box office. It was sort of in the 50 percentile range. By the last audit they did, which was 2013, we were up to over 85%.
Wow.
So, and that doesn't just happen by itself. It happens because retailers make a commitment to enforce those store policies. They train their store associates. They put register prompts in when you scan an M game over the counter, when you check out and you want, you check for ID. That's all part of a plan. And we actually do our own mystery shop audits twice a year to make sure the companies are compliant. And we pass back the store level data to them so that they know which stores are compliant and which stores need some remediation. But that's, that's all stuff that happens behind the scenes that nobody really knows about, but we do because, we, as I said earlier, we just take a lot of pride in making sure that the companies are acting responsibly and that consumers are protected.
It's interesting because I vividly remember going into R-rated movies underage as a kid and, like sneaking in, so to speak. And I think a lot of kids have that same experience with video games as well. And, when I think of organizations like the ESRB, I just always assume that an entity like that exists to keep the government from overreaching and regulating. Instead, we say, hey, we're an industry that wants to be responsible and wants to make sure that, we're taking care of the people who are consuming this content. Let us handle it. Would you
Yes.
agree with that kind of mindset?
Oh, completely. I mean, even look, the good news is the US has something called the First Amendment, which you've probably heard about.
Yes, indeed.
Which prohibits the government from regulating speech. And as you're probably well aware, there was a famous Supreme Court case back in 2011 that Antonin Scalia wrote the opinion on, which basically shot down a California law that was intended to regulate the sale of violent video games. And what came out in the opinion was not only are video games also considered speech, and therefore can't be regulated. It also talked about the lack of research that showed a causal connection between playing a violent video game and violent behavior. But there were also other legs of that stool in the opinion, and one of which was the industry's doing a pretty darn good job providing information to parents so that they can make informed decisions and not selling these games at retail. To kids that are unaccompanied, without a parent. And so all of that is important in defending our industry and preventing regulation that, is onerous, burdensome, and frankly, won't even do what we can do. So for an example, outside the US, nobody else has a First Amendment, and oftentimes ratings are the domain of a government agency. A government rates films, rates video games, and when they may have regulations on the books that say if it's rated, the equivalent of a mature, they can't sell it. Retail stores can't sell it to minors, but nobody's actually checking oftentimes. And, I'll stand up our system to any system in the world. I mean, I don't think anybody else is getting the level of enforcement at retail that we do, in part because I think, we're spending resources to actually enforce those policies and make sure the companies are compliant. And it's really hard to do if you're not sort of dedicated to it. And it's just, So I don't know. I think self-regulation is really the way to go. Federal Trade Commission thinks that too. I mean, we've had former FTC commissioners actually hold up the ESRB as a great example of self-regulation. I think it's good for the industry. I think it protects the industry. Some people, I think, consider ratings to be a form of censorship. I actually don't see it that way at all. I think it's a way to really protect developers. If you are disclosing the content and the age appropriateness of your game to consumers, it's on the consumers at that point. It's up to you as a consumer. You have the information you need to make an informed decision. It's no longer the responsibility of the developer. On the other hand, if the developer puts out a game into the marketplace and doesn't inform the consumer about what's in it, I think that's where the problems arise.
Oh, that's so great to hear you talk about all of that, because I think you hit the nail on the head. Sometimes people see the ESRB and their knee-jerk reaction because they're not so aware of the importance of what y'all do and how you keep certain meddling hands out of the industry. They think, oh, it's a hindrance. Oh, it's reporting on this game. Oh, this game got an M rating. Now I can't play it because I'm underage. But the work you do is so important. And I love
Thank you.
that message is getting spread out there, because trust me, we don't want certain hands in our industry, friends. Trust me, we just don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
It was interesting earlier. You talked about how you market to the parents and how you not market to the parents, excuse me, how you make the ESRB ratings on a little corner of the box again, and so parents can help their children make an informed decision of what game they're going to play, and so they can have a hand in what sort of games they played. And I immediately thought about when I was 8 years old and my dad took me to Hollywood Video. I miss my rental stores. And bless his heart, he didn't know what those little ratings were. And I walked out of that store with Resident Evil 2. Now, Resident Evil has become one of my most beloved franchises. I've hosted showcases for Capcom, but at the time, that game scarred me for, I'm kid you not, 2 years. If my dad had just known what to look for. So what steps has the ESRB taken, I guess, since 1998 or whenever, to market to parents and teach them the importance of what you do in today's age?
So we do a lot to reach parents. Obviously, parents are very busy, but we do a lot. We're doing more and more social media, but we've created not just a rating search on our website, a ratings guide that explains all of the different ratings that we have. We now have something called the Family Gaming Guide, which pulls all of these resources in together and gives you tips on all sorts of things about parental controls, about screen time, and managing online play, and all sorts of things into one easy to digest place that parents can go. So that's the Family Gaming Guide, which is available on our website. We also have something called parentaltools.org, which not only has the Family Gaming Guide, but also has specific guides for each of the sets of parental controls. So, the Xbox, the PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, and more. You can go to parentaltools.org and get instructions, easy to understand instructions for each one of the consoles, as well as other devices, game devices you may have in your home. So that's also really important. We've done public service announcements. We've done all sorts of ad campaigns. We've teamed up with elected officials in a whole host of markets. We've done a lot to try to get the word out to parents. We also just created a resource for Spanish-speaking households called Vamos a Jugar, and we're very proud of that. That's pulled together a lot of the resources that we had that were already in Spanish. So that's a helpful resource, particularly for Spanish-speaking households. But it's hard to reach parents. Parents are overwhelmed. They are both working, and kids are busy, and they've got very, very busy lives. And I think, the simpler we can make messages, the better for parents. So that's one of the reasons why we pulled together this Family Gaming Guide, where we just pulled all these various different resources together. So you only had to go to one place to just sort of get what you need. But we have a mobile app, so you can look up rating information on the go. You can just type in the name of the game that you're looking for, and up comes the rating information. I don't know if you're aware of this, but not only is there ratings information on the box, but for all the physical games that come through the ESRB that are rated, we actually have rating summaries that are a paragraph or two that are written by our raters, who will give you examples of the type of content that we saw in the game that may have warranted a content descriptor. So it'll give you examples of the language. It'll give you, if there's suggestive or sexual content, it'll give you the context of that. Certainly it will give you lots of information about the context of the violence in the game. And anything else that's really pertinent to the rating information is described in that rating summary. So those rating summaries are available in our mobile app as well as on our website.
I know sometimes there's always some fun articles written when an ESRB review summary comes out, because people are like, oh, this game got this rating because of this reason. And then the speculation just runs wild, because generally that comes out before we know too many details about a certain game. So that's kind of fun.
We're very careful about not putting spoilers in those rating summaries. But yes, they're not only a good resource for parents, but gamers like them too.
Yeah.
We also have a series now called What Parents Need to Know that we are publishing more and more frequently. We first did it on, I think the first one we did may have been on in-game purchases or multiplayer games, but we've done a lot on individual titles. We just did one on FIFA. We've done them on Apex Legends, and Minecraft is a really popular one. Roblox is obviously a really popular one too. But we've done them on specific games as well as different aspects of gameplay. So that's a really great series. And we have, we send those out by newsletter, and we post them in social media and all sorts of things like that. But it's hard to reach parents. We do what we can, and hopefully, we have high awareness. That's good, because our ratings have been around for a long time. Our research indicates 85% of parents with kids who play video games are aware of the ratings, and 3/4 of the time they regularly use them. They say, and that means, all the time or most of the time. So that's been about the same for the last 10 years.
Oh.
So, we keep trying to push it up a little bit, but I think, we've probably hit about as high as we're going to get. I'll take 85%. I think that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, yeah. So it's not like parents don't have a clue. I think most parents do, and most parents are doing the best they can. Our research indicates that most parents are pretty good about limiting spending for their kids. They get that, right? They can set those controls or set those household rules that, forget about it, Johnny. If you spend, more than $1 on,
one whole dollar.
Fortnite, that's it, right? That's it.
It's interesting because we say the word parents, and I think of these whole other species of people, but I'm a parent. Andrea's a parent. Patricia, I don't know if you have children, but
I do.
Okay, so I'd be curious to know, how do you think those statistics are going to change as we, a generation who grew up with video games, become parents and are aware of the industry?
Yeah, so our research is indicating that more and more parents are actually playing the game before they let their kids play it.
It's the best way if you've got the time, right?
It is the best way for sure. And we encourage parents to get in there and play the game with their kids as well. But yeah, I mean, I think, look, a whole generation of parents now grew up playing games. They know the ESRB ratings. They know they're there. And if they want to play the game, they probably know how to. And so they should check out the game before they let their kids play if they have any questions about it. On the other hand, we have our rating summaries if you really want to check it out and find out, if there's anything in there that you have a problem with. They're there. I mean, look, parents also have different thresholds for different types of content. What's good for my kids may not be good for your kids. And we're not here to tell you one way or the other what's good for your kids. We want to give you the information so you can make an informed decision. But, depending on the region, we find pretty significant regional differences between, about certain types of content. Some regions in the U.S. are more sensitive to language than others. Some regions are more sensitive to violence than others. I mean, there are some parts of the country that, we're a military simulation because they have such high, military, people who've been, served in the military, Call of Duty to them is no big deal. But, it is in other parts of the country. So I think the most important thing is that we provide the information. The ratings, the age ratings themselves is just a guidepost. And then the content descriptors will really give you the information as to why it got the rating that it did. And then if you want to really understand more about the content, that's where the rating summaries come in. So it's up to you as a parent. Take advantage of that information and make your own decision.
What's good, everybody? We are interrupting the interview because we want to let you know that this episode of What's Good Games is brought to you by MeUndies.
The holidays are officially upon us, and it's time to start celebrating. I'm so ready. Like, actually celebrating. It's your holiday, too, so you should be able to relax and do what you love. If that means watching every single seasonally themed rom-com, I feel like that's a tongue twister, so be it. Live your best life. Do your thing and holiday your way with MeUndies. It's the most wonderful time of year to try MeUndies because they're currently offering a very merry deal. Get 20% off of your first purchase with free standard shipping and free returns when you go to MeUndies.com/WGG. Now, Andrea, what is something that you're the most excited about doing this holiday season?
Ooh, sleeping?
Sleeping. Now, imagine sleeping in sandpaper on your butt.
That does not sound fun at all.
No, see, if you love to sleep, if you love to watch TV or play video games, you don't want sandpaper butt. So make sure you have a very, very comfortable bottoms with your MeUndies. And I say this because, listen, I love to lounge and play games and chill during the holiday season. Sometimes I'll even turn on the Hallmark Channel. But I like to do it in comfort and style. And you, friends, can get your holiday shopping finished early and start making time for yourself with the new MeUndies holiday collection. Their undies, loungewear, and sleepwear are made out of the softest, most supple fabric you've ever felt and are guaranteed to bring comfort and joy to all of your loved ones. Shop their classic plaid prints for a traditional picture-perfect style or get festive with their adventurous limited edition sweater prints. Ooh. Available in sizes XS through 4XL, MeUndies has what you need to make all of your favorite people smile this holiday season, all in one convenient place. Feel free to start thinking about yourself now. So to get 20% off of your first order, free shipping, and a 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/WGG. That's MeUndies.com/WGG.
True story. I got me, John, and my mom's matching MeUndies pajamas for Christmas last year.
Really?
Yeah. It was fun.
I just had this vision in my head of all of us wearing our MeUndies Christmas onesies again when we record some of our content in December.
Oh, let's
right?
do
We're going to be in
it.
studio together. And oh my God.
I can't wait, especially for it to not be 90 degrees so I can wear my onesie and not sweat.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's get back to the interview. I think it's really fascinating hearing about how the agency has evolved. I would be curious to know, in the ever-increasing march towards this digital distribution future that I think we are closely getting to, right? More games now are being bought on digital than ever before. That makes the point of sale enforcement for things like ratings incredibly difficult. What are you guys as an organization doing to kind of overcome some of those challenges? And are there certain tools that you're finding that developers and publishers are using to kind of enforce where they can? Because there's only so much you can do, right?
Yeah. Well, the good news about digital is in most cases, not all, but in most cases, you need some sort of credit card, and most kids don't have credit cards. So you're going to find a bill if you're a parent, or find a charge on your credit card. So, there is some inherent limitations, but that doesn't, free to play is a whole nother thing. And that's where parental controls really come in. If you want to block spending, or limit spending, the parental controls tell you, okay, you can only spend, $5 this month. So, set the controls. And so I think that's where that comes in. And then of course the parental controls also allow you to block by age rating. We had a lot of foresight 10 years ago with, we realized that we were going to work ourselves into extinction if we didn't create a scalable rating solution and a globally coordinated rating solution for digital. Because, physical, you had to get a distributor in every region, and, it was very laborious, and you had to submit your game to rating agencies around the world to get it rated. And oh my God, those barriers to entry fell away with mobile and digital. And I knew I had been in the internet business prior to ESRB, so I knew sort of how to build technology and systems. So we created a scalable solution, and it was an automated solution to assign ratings. I locked my head of ratings in a conference room for weeks to come up with a questionnaire and a multiple choice questionnaire, and see if you can take what is inherently a very subjective process in your brain to look at content and evaluate it, and break it down into ones and zeros. And he said, it can't be done. And I said, try.
You're like, but what if we lived in a world where it could?
Keep trying until, and they would iterate and iterate and iterate until they found something that was good enough. We first licensed that system to the cell phone companies when they were in the business, in the old feature phones where, you had little games on your Verizon phone, and, they were pretty, primitive,
basic,
right? But we used it for that, and that was a really good test. And then we decided we would introduce it in a limited way for digital only games on consoles in the US. And so that worked pretty well. And then I went around the world and basically took this system that we had developed to other rating agencies around the world. And I basically said, look, if we don't figure out a way to streamline all of this, we're all going to be dead. And
got so serious.
Well, I think it took a little bit of time for them to sort of come on board with that, but I think they all realized, look, mobile in particular was just blowing the socks off and of the industry, and there was no way any of us could use our traditional rating systems to rate that kind of volume. So if nothing else, let's create a system for mobile that can handle that sort of volume, because my attitude is I want the ESRB ratings to be available across every game device. That, I don't want it to be broken up where you have to learn a whole new rating system for one device versus another. I want to make sure that our ratings are ubiquitous, whatever.
Ubiquitous.
Across, all games. And in order to do that, we had to really come up with a whole different strategy. So we built this software as a service solution, a SaaS solution for ratings that we licensed to storefronts around the world. Google Play was one of our first customers. So Google Play uses this system for all of their apps in their store, not just games. And we have many different rating agencies that are all part of the system, so that what happens is when a developer completes the questionnaire, the answers, there's a different algorithm for each region, because our cultures are different. How we rate product is different from PEGI in Europe, or USK in Germany, or Australia, or Brazil, or Korea, or, so we have all of these different rating agencies who take the answers and create their own logic, so that when you're in Korea, you'll see a GRAC rating for that game. When you're in North America, you'll see an ESRB rating for that game. And they could be very different ratings because we use different criteria. Mm-hmm. And then each rating authority then monitors the ratings that come through the system. And we have the ability, because it's a SaaS solution, we're using APIs back and forth with all the storefronts. We have the ability to control the rating that's displayed in the store. So if we have to change it, we change it. and the storefronts are pinging our servers every 15 minutes, and it's it's an incredible system. It's completely revolutionary, and the developers don't have to pay a penny to use it, so they love it.
That's great.
And the
Wow.
storefronts are paying their freight. They're licensing the system from it's called the International Age Rating Coalition. They're and I'm the chair of it, and we handle a lot of the operations out of the ESRB. But it was the only way we could keep afoot in this in the games business, certainly the digital side of the business. So Nintendo uses it for digital games around the world. Sony does the same thing. Microsoft, Xbox does it. Oculus uses it for all their VR stuff. Slowly but surely we're rolling it out. 8 different stores have licensed it, so we're really proud of it. If there's anything I leave behind in this industry, it'll be IARC.
That's really, really impressive and amazing that you had not only the foresight to think, hey, we need to get on top of this before it becomes a problem, but then also to create something like that didn't exist is such a monumental task to achieve. So congrats on that. So now that you've achieved this amazing thing, are you ready to tackle Web3? What's coming with metaverse and NFTs? I know it's such a hot button topic these days, but I have to imagine those conversations are happening within your organization of like, what are we as the agency responsible for helping keep the industry safe for consumers going to do about this new technology that's coming in?
Yeah, we're sort of taking a wait and see, case by case approach. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's so wild to think about how the concept of metaverses have obviously been around in video games for quite some time now. I mean, like Second Life has been around forever. But this idea of like the blockchain, exactly.
It's a new thing. I mean,
No, it's just
Life.
just the terminology, right?
Before I was at the ESRB, Second Life was around. I mean,
I mean, that's a really good point. What were you doing before the ESRB? We haven't even asked you.
Oh, it was on my list, and you mentioned you were working in the internet before the ESRB.
So, I guess the bulk of my career prior to the ESRB, I spent 18 years at ABC and Disney. I developed a lot of new markets for them, and a lot of them were interactive. So I was in interactive before interactive was a term. I mean, everything from, direct response video sales on the network to CD-ROMs and interactive laser discs.
Laser discs.
Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
And when ABC got serious about the internet, they created something called the Multimedia Group, which I was part of in the early days. And we launched abc.com and Oprah.com and Oscar.com. And I ran the internet group there for several years. We had also, prior to that, or during that time, I helped develop or start 2 joint ventures. One was with Electronic Arts. They had a division called Creative Wonders for kids software that they spun out into a joint venture with ABC. I'm sorry, they had a division called EA Kids, which they spun out into a joint venture with us that we called Creative Wonders. And they had Sesame Street and Schoolhouse Rock and Madeline and a whole bunch of different properties.
Yeah.
And so we did that for a while until Disney bought ABC and then decided eventually to sell it off. And then we also started a sports games joint venture with Microprose. And we had Monday Night Football, college football, and indie racing games. We were the first sports game, PC sports game, to have online competitions.
Wow.
So like a precursor to esports?
Yeah. Precursor to esports. It was
or maybe like in tandem with what was happening in other sections of the industry.
It was all virtual. It wasn't, you weren't like, in arenas. It was virtual competitions. So, but it was the first time you could really compete online. And so we were pretty progressive. It was 1996, I think, when it came out. So anyway, so I was in the biz, and left ABC in 2000, did a few other things, and then a recruiter came after me to come into the ESRB. And on the ESA board, there was somebody who I'd actually helped create one of these joint ventures, who had tried to hire me at one point. So he was like, oh my God, if you can get her. And so the rest is history.
Wow.
That's really incredible. I think a lot of people who consume video games and maybe even watch a show like ours but don't know a lot about the industry don't realize how many people work kind of behind the scenes to make all of the wheels run. Even like the ESA as an organization as well. I think a lot of people aren't familiar with what they do, and
it's really important work. You know, they are really actively out there trying to help companies make sure that, you know, legislators and regulators are informed about what our industry does, and you know, particularly if they're developing regulations, to make sure that the regulations aren't harmful to the business in a way that, you know, just, you know, sort of unintended consequences of certain types of legislation. And they do really good work, and they raise awareness of the industry in a lot of places where there's very little awareness.
absolutely. But E3, that's all anybody ever sees, which is good. Obviously, we all love E3, but they do so much more.
So we all have to come back, right?
Oh, thank God.
Can't wait. 2023. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about you and, you know, how you got into the ESRB, I would love to hear a little bit more about, you know, what you love about working in games, because as you just told us, you know, working in entertainment is such a different beast than working in video games. You know, is there something about this industry that makes you want to keep staying and keep fighting the good fight?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I was, you know, in the beginning of a lot of different businesses, and I got to tell you, the talent that's in the video game industry is superior to anything else I've ever been in. I mean, I think we have some of the most incredible designers, programmers, business people, you know, of any industry that I've ever worked in. So it's, for me, the business is really interesting. It's very dynamic. This work itself, I find the combination, one of the things I wanted to do after I left Disney was to try to find a place where I could leverage my business experience, but do something for the public good. And this is a really nice combination of that for me. So it's challenging. It's an industry that keeps evolving, which means we've got to keep evolving with it. So you're always learning, you're always being challenged, you're always trying to solve problems. And it's you know, it's just a really interesting work. And all the International Age Rating Coalition activities is, for me, you know, I'm still flexing my entrepreneurial, you know, roots, and I really enjoy that.
I'm going to ask you a basic question, but you know, it's one that needs to be asked. What games are you most excited for right now?
Oh my God. Well, you know, I try to be agnostic.
I imagine it's like, oh, I love all of my children, all millions of you.
I love all my children. I do. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff out in the market and coming. You know, it's all good. You know.
Well, maybe a better way to phrase it, so you don't have to pick a favorite, is, you know, after, you know, so many years of seeing literally hundreds of thousands of games, I imagine at this point, do you still find yourself getting surprised and excited when something, you know, comes across your team's virtual desk, so to speak, and you're like, wow, that looks really neat and cool and different? Do you still have that wonder?
I get excited when the people here get excited. Like, you know, they're all active gamers, and, you know, they'll come in and start talking about something they were playing last night, and I get excited just hearing them get excited. So I learn a lot about games because I don't spend a lot of time myself playing them,
Mm.
but hearing about them from my team is always always fun, and the lunchroom conversations are really fun.
I bet.
I imagine the NDA to work with the ESRB must be very, very long.
It is. In fact, we just updated it today. So yes, it is. I'm familiar with it.
I don't envy the people who have to read that and then
Yeah.
sign it. That must be
Well,
very
that's
intense.
really important, though. I mean, look, if you're going to work here, you've got to really be respectful of the confidentiality of a lot of the materials that we handle every day. I mean, we've never had a leak, thank God.
Oh, congrats.
Wow.
Oh no, we never had a leak. We're really, really, really locked down. So it's, I'm proud of that. But yeah, I mean, people here get exposed to a lot of things before anybody else does, and we protect that very closely.
I got to ask a question, and it was percolating in my head. So you said the board is about 30 people on the ESRB? Is that
The staff, yeah.
the staff? Okay. So I can't imagine how many game summaries y'all have to write up all the time to, really go into detail over how a game got its rating. Do those people write, do those staff write those summaries, or do you contract that work out?
No, we write it internally.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how many games are being reviewed then.
Yeah.
Does the process involve reviewing a game from start to finish for those summaries, or is it just like a slice?
So the rating process, you know how long games are and how repetitive, and how repetitive some games can be in terms of the content. So what's really important for our raters is not to get burnt out watching, 25 hours of, a platformer fighting game. I mean, we need them to look at the content they need to look at within the context of the gameplay, the typical gameplay. So we don't want them just watching a whole reel of very, violent or, all the language all just like bunched up in one video clip. We rely on publishers. It's an art putting together a submission. We rely on publishers to fully disclose to us in writing what's in the game. And then we also have a video that they submit. We actually don't play the game because part of the reason is because when they need to submit a game to us, it's before the product goes gold. It can be buggy. They're still not, completely finished, but the reason why they have to submit it at that point is because they need to press discs with the rating information on it. They need to manufacture boxes and packaging and advertising and all that jazz with the rating information. So they need to submit it to us before it goes gold. And
Makes sense.
so getting a video is really important. So we're not, dealing with bugs and crashes and all that jazz. And the other part of it is to make sure that we see the content we need to see. The developer or publisher has to show us the most extreme content, which may take hours and hours and hours to play to get to. So we put it on them, show it to us within the context of the overall gameplay. So most submissions are about maybe an hour or 2 hours. Some submissions can be much longer than that. But most games we can pretty much get a feel for the game in an hour, maybe 2, if not less. And, so, yeah.
Has anybody gotten their kind of privileges revoked? Like, have they submitted something that was not fully revealing the scope of the game? Because I have to imagine that's happened at least a couple times where someone's like, well, let's just sneak the ESRB this video and maybe they won't notice.
Resident Evil submits a video of puppies, and it's like, it's great.
So I'll tell you, we get asked that a lot. The reality is that there's no incentive to do that for any publisher because the ramifications or consequences of not fully disclosing content to us, it's not just the fines and the enforcement action that results. It's the fact that you have to pull the product, you have to you modify the product, or you have to modify the rating in all your materials, or there's no incentive. The incentives are all against not disclosing to us. So we don't find that there's any malicious non-disclosure going on. There may be from time to time some careless non-disclosure where whoever did the submission didn't really know the product inside and out, and forgot there was an alcohol scene, or maybe there was some language that, even though scripts get submitted to us, maybe there was some language that was missing, or there are some times where stuff doesn't get disclosed to us and we have to correct the rating. It's usually a content descriptor. It's not usually a rating category. But that's an expensive mistake for them.
Yeah, now that you pointed out, I have to imagine that especially if you're going to retail and you're printing physical boxes with, materials with the rating on it, having to redo all of that is not a great look for them.
No, it's not. It's not. So, but it's funny, like there's no incentive really to do that. Plus, like if you're in marketing, you know what rating you're going to get on your game. It's not like it's a secret.
Yeah.
So unless it's a really borderline product, which there are some that, could be T, could be M, could be E10, could be teen, unless it's like a really borderline product, you know what your rating is, and you have a target rating when you create a product. Whether it's going to be an M game or teen game and E game, whatever. So there's just not a lot of guesswork. We also make available to all developers who are going to submit to the ESRB our ratings people. I mean, not our raters per se, but the ratings department is available at any time during the development process. If you have a question about a particular sequence, a particular mission, a particular character, a particular storyline that you're developing, you can go to ESRB and get an informal response as to what you think it's likely to warrant from a rating standpoint. So there should be no surprises. By the time you submit that game, you should know pretty much what you're getting from a rating category. Maybe the content descriptors will be a little different than you thought they would be, but the rating category should not be a surprise.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. And I literally feel like I could pelt you with 50 more questions in the next minute, rapid fire. Wow.
Yeah, it's been so wonderful hearing from you, Pat. And,
Thank you.
I know we're at the end of our time, but thank you so much for sharing your knowledge about who the ESRB is and what you guys do, and the industry that we're in. Obviously, we all love video games. That's why we have been in the industry this long as well. So it's great. So just to kind of wrap things up, if people are curious about where they can go and find more, is there like a specific website or a social media handle that they can go to?
Yeah. So ESRB.org is the website, and we have, ESRB, we're on all the social platforms. So, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have LinkedIn, if you want to go to LinkedIn.
Hey, more people than I thought are active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I guess it's like the rising social media side that I didn't know was popping.
We have our mobile app, so that's a great place to look up rating information. So ESRB rating, you should probably find an ESRB ratings app on Android or iOS store. You could also, if you're interested in learning more about the International Age Rated Coalition, you can go to globalratings.com, and that will give you more information about which stores have licensed the system, which rating authorities are participating, and that sort of thing.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time to chat with Britt and I. And we hope that you have a nice, relaxing holiday season. I'm sure most of the bulk of your work is already behind you as the games are getting ready to go gold over these next couple of months.
Well, yeah, it's a busy time for us, but you're going to be busy too, as you have to talk about all these games that are coming out. So.
Yes, I don't want to use the word unfortunately have to play the games to evaluate them.
Too bad.
But I know
what a rough
it's
job.
It's
so
the
terrible.
worst. If there was
God of War.
Yeah,
if only there was
tough
more
job, but
hours in the
somebody's
day.
gotta do it. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was such an amazing time getting to sit down with Pat and hear about it. And I was kind of hoping she was going to tell us about what she's been playing, but I get the weird position she must be in if she calls out even one game. She'll never probably hear the end of it from all the other publishers being like, what, is our games not good enough for you?
I know, I didn't even think about that. I was just, because I feel like you can tell a lot about a person by the game they're currently playing, says the person who loves Resident Evil and all these other terrible, awful, violent games.
I mean, it does say something about you, Brittany. What that
you're
is,
right.
we'll leave it up to the listeners to decide.
Look at that thing be, but yeah, I totally get it too. But she handled that one very well.
It's almost like she's practiced this before. So
Yeah, almost.
But she did give a lot of great resources. We're going to leave those links in the show notes for you guys. So if you are looking forward to checking out some of those resources, you can click the links down below. And thanks again to Patricia for making time to chat with us. And we hope that you guys enjoyed this interview. And next week, everybody, is a big episode for us. It's episode 300, Brittany. 300.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. I mean, it really is. I don't think I can quite wrap my head around it, but that's a lot. And that doesn't even include the special episodes we've done on the side.
No, I think we're closer to almost 400 total pieces of content that we've published as podcast. Obviously, the videos on YouTube and stuff are a whole nother realm. But it is going to be a really fun episode, and we're gonna hopefully take a little walk down memory lane and kind of think about what we've done in these 300 episodes. So if you guys have been around with us, or if you're new to the podcast and you have memories that you want to share or thoughts about the podcast that you would like to send our way, we would love to hear them and hopefully include them on the show. contact@whatsgoodgames.com is our email. You can write us on Patreon. You could tweet to us, whatsgood_games. Send us a message on Discord, however you want to reach out. And we look forward to celebrating with you guys next week. And until then, maybe we can try to get some sleep, Brittany.
You're funny.
Aren't I? All right, bye, everybody.